Hey, what's up guys, it's Bonk, and welcome back to the 47th Slimekeep Devlog. In this devlog, I worked on adding some more game feel to Slimekeep. Also, if you're new here, Slimekeep is a fast-paced roguelike where you must kill and capture slimes to stop the corruption that's infected your land. Without further ado, let's get into it. So to start off, over the past few years, I've gotten literally hundreds of comments from you guys asking me to give the slime pet its own skins. And I never got around to this, until now. So I started drawing up a bunch of skins for the slime pet inside of Acebreak. My plan was to make these skins apply to the pet when they purchase one of these tier 3 upgrades. So it wasn't like every small upgrade was going to change the pet's appearance, unfortunately. But eventually I drawn up the art for 5 unique slime pet skins and got to work setting them up all in Unity. I just used animation override controllers for these skins, like how I did for the player skins, to make things really easy. And soon enough I got all these skins set up, so here they are. First, when purchasing the tier 3 ranger upgrade, the pet will turn into this nerdy guy with glasses, as the tier 3 ranger upgrade allows this pet to shoot rockets, so I thought this was kind of fitting. Then for the brute skin, we had this kind of punk pet with a beard and mohawk, which I thought looked pretty sick. Next, for the assassin skin, I gave the pet a pretty standard assassin bandana, and for the specialty skin, I turned our pet into a little wizard. Then finally for the passive skin, I made the pet turn into this hippie guy with a mini afro and some cool sunglasses. So yeah, that's all the pet skins in the game. And if you're wondering, if the player has more than one tier 3 upgrade or skin, the pet will just use the most recently purchased upgrade as its skin. So yeah, I know there aren't too many skins and they don't stack, but I still do think these skins add a bit of charm to the pet. But next up, adding on to the pet, I got some more complaints that the pet was just a little static and didn't really feel too alive or have much of a connection to the environment in the game. And an idea I had to fix this was giving the pet a bit of dialogue. Nothing crazy, just a line or two here to make the pet feel a little more alive. So I got to work and created a document to draft out a bunch of ideas for the pet dialogue and when these instances of dialogue would occur. So like if the pet enters a room or clears a room, for example. And eventually I drafted out all this dialogue and set it up in Unity inside of these unique message arrays. Then inside of this pet dialogue script, I made a bunch of these functions for each of the dialogue types. The main idea here was that when entering a room, for example, I could call a specific pet dialogue function and it would give a chance for the pet to say a random message chosen from a certain dialogue array. So with all that set up, we can now see the pet talking to the player. I didn't want to make it too intrusive, just pop up every now and then, but yeah, that's the new slime pet dialogue, which I definitely think helped add a bit more life to the slime pet. But speaking of the slime pet, if you want to give him a hug right now, I need you to click the link in the description and wishlist Slimekeep on Steam. It seriously helps me out a ton, it takes like 2 seconds to do so, and if you do it right now, I will hug this slime pet. Okay, have you done it yet? Well, thanks. So here's me hugging the slime pet. Anyways, switching gears, one of my composers, Splash, created a few new songs for some of the rooms in the game, so here they are. First, inside of the Goose Station, now if the player hovers near this arcade machine, they'll hear a muffled version of this song. Then, if the player decides to play the arcade machine, they will now hear the full version of this newly created song, which I think sounds great. And next up, now if the player enters the room with Billy's Tavern, they can hear another muffled song playing from the outside. Then if I enter the tavern here, boom, we can now hear the unmuffled version of this song, which again, I thought sounded really cool. But personally, I think that you should check out the sponsor of this video, .fun domains. .fun domains gives you the opportunity to use the .fun extension on your own websites and hopefully make them a lot more fun. This type of extension is perfect for all kinds of gaming or development related websites and is a nice breath of fresh air from your typical .com domains. I even made my very own website with a .fun domain. Right now you can visit slimekeep.fun and see the official website for Slimekeep. From here you can wishlist the game on Steam and do a few other small things. But I just think it's nice to have an official website for the game, especially with a .fun domain, because hopefully you should be having fun when you play Slimekeep. So if you want to grab a .fun domain for yourself, check out get.fun by clicking the link in the description and use my special code BENBONK to get your very own .fun domain for 99 cents for the first year. What a great deal. But moving on, let's talk game feel for a second. As you probably know, Slimekeep is getting closer and closer to release, and it feels like most of the core mechanics in the game are good to go. Except the game could still use quite a bit more game feel or polish. Not to say that there wasn't any of this in the game already, but many of my playtesters felt like the game was just missing that extra layer of polish. So I wanted to work on this for the next few days. And to start, I watched a bunch of videos from a bunch of different game development creators about game feel and how to implement it into your game. I got a ton of great ideas from these videos and converted these ideas onto my Trello board, so I knew exactly what to focus on. So let's get started. First up, we had the weapon shooting in the game. To start, I added in a small cloud of dust whenever the player shoots any of their weapons. Then, to further sell the impact of shooting, I made the player squish a bit whenever they shoot a weapon. Then, finally, I added in this simple line of code to alter the pitch of the weapon shoot sound, so shooting weapons doesn't sound the exact same with each shot. And while none of these changes were anything major, I thought they definitely helped. But now let's move on to the slime enemies in the game. And firstly, I was kind of annoyed by the slime knockback in the game. Right now, when a slime gets shot, they kind of move back quickly and then just all of a sudden stop, which felt a little unnatural. So to fix this, I modified the knockback code to slowly ease out the velocity of the knockback. This way, it now looked like these slimes kind of smoothly slide back, instead of jolting back when being knocked back. It also annoyed me how slimes would previously come to a halt with the knockback even after they'd been killed. So to make things more satisfying, I added in a bit of extra knockback on these slimes' last health point, and made them retain this knockback as they play their death animation. Then, continuing on the train of slime polish, I recall hearing that some other roguelikes such as Enter the Gungeon or Nuclear Throne used a brief time freeze effect whenever the player damages an enemy to make the damage feel more impactful. So I decided to kind of steal this effect by creating this coroutine which very simply frees the game's time for 0.04 seconds whenever damaging a slime in the game. So now in game, the player can maybe slightly notice this effect. Personally, I don't think it makes a huge difference, but it probably doesn't hurt, so I'll let you guys decide. But next up, I added some small green goop particles to the slimes whenever they're damaged to make them feel even more satisfying and squishy. And finally, I also added in a slightly bigger explosion of green goop when the slime dies to sell the death effect. Now moving on, for some bits of polish to the player, I started off by adding another squish effect to the player whenever they dash to, well, make them feel more squishy. I also realized that whenever the player destroyed a bunch of explodable things in the game, such as these crates, there was a severe lack of screen shake. So I tried my best to go around the game and add in screen shake to all these small bits like this that felt like they needed some screen shake. Next, I was pretty unhappy with how the player would take damage in the game. Right now, they would kind of just flash for a few seconds, but that was really it, and it wasn't too clear when the player was actually taking damage. So to fix this, I did a bunch. I added some screen shake, lens distortion, chromatic aberration, and a yellow screen flash for about a second. Now, it was really obvious when the player took damage, which felt so much better than how it previously was. Moving on, I learned in one of the game feel videos that I watched that adding simple 2D lights were a great way to make your game look even more polished. And I never really thought about this, but I figured it would be a great idea to help make the game look even better. And thankfully, Unity has a built-in 2D light system inside of its universal render pipeline, which I happen to use for Slimekeep. But I quickly ran into some issues when trying to use this system. See, for Slimekeep, I need to use this custom render for things like the Fog of War effect. But for the 2D light system, you need to use a different special 2D renderer. So it seemed like it was either the 2D light system or the Fog of War in the game. I really couldn't go without the Fog of War, so I felt like I was out of options. That is, until I found this asset on the Unity asset store called Smart Lighting 2D, which basically seemed to do the same things as Unity's 2D lighting system, but not require a special 2D renderer. So I bought this asset and got to work. Now I could right click here and select this new option called 2D light and create a light. Then I could turn this light into an overlay light, mess around with it a bit, and boom, we now had 2D lighting. I started off by giving the player and their pet a slight glow light. It wasn't anything too noticeable, but I figured that adding small glow lights to all kinds of objects in the game could really make things feel a lot more polished overall. So for my first task, I set up a few lights in the player's house, which instantly made it feel so much more alive in my opinion, and just looked really cool. Then I worked on adding small lights to every single slime in the game. Again, this is nothing too crazy, but I definitely think this helped these slimes pop a little more from their environment. Then I embarked on the quest to add lights pretty much everywhere else where I saw fit. So I added some subtle lights to shopkeepers like this guy, this skull, all the bosses in the game, and so on. Overall, I'm really happy with this change, so let me know what you think. But we still weren't done adding more bits of polish. A while ago, one of my Discord members suggested adding birds to random rooms in the game, and I kind of just put the suggestion on my back burner until now. So to create a bird for the game, I looked back to the game Celeste and remembered how I always loved the look of this bird in the game here. So I kind of took quite a bit of inspiration from this bird here and created this bird of my own, along with an idle animation in the Slimekeep palette. I also created this bird fly animation so the bird could actually fly, and created a few birds in the game for testing. As you can see, these birds play their basic idle animation, but once I get close to them, they will all fly away. Then, to get these birds spawning, I created this script to allow me to spawn birds around certain positions in which I could specify in each room in the game. This script would also allow me to decrease the spawn rate of birds over time, as like the corruption in the game is getting more intense. Then I went around to each room in the game and added in the script and a few possible positions where all the birds could spawn around. So with all that done, now in game you can see how these birds appear in a bunch of the rooms and fly away, which I just think is a really nice addition and makes rooms feel a lot better. Then for the final change I made for now, I got some feedback that some of the isometric buildings in the game looked a bit weird because they didn't have shadows behind them, so I went around all these buildings and added these translucent shadows, so yeah, that should hopefully help. Anyways, that's all I have for this devlog. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to wishlist Slimekeep on Steam. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.